Ray Fittipaldo joins us now to get into all of it. And Ray is brought to you by LGKG, the born and raised Western PA injury attorneys who take your personal injury cases personally. Good morning to you, Ray. How you doing?
Good morning, guys. I'm doing well.
Ray, your biggest takeaway from OTA number one?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote about it. I just think it's the uncertainty that looms over this football team. And, you know, a lot of the guys yesterday said the right things when it came to Aaron Rodgers not being there. But I also got the sense that they're kind of sick of, you know, not talking about it, because yesterday was the first time they talked about it. But they're just kind of sick of this being the storyline about this football team for more than 2 months now. So, you know, they said the right things yesterday. I don't think, honestly, guys, this won't come up again until minicamp. Now, if this is still ongoing at minicamp, yeah, the guys are going to have to answer these questions again. But they kind of got it out of the way yesterday, and you know, we'll have hopefully 2 weeks of peace and quiet, you know, until minicamp gets here.
Ray, let's say Aaron Rodgers doesn't sign with the Steelers. Do you think that Mason Rudolph is capable of having a Sam Darnold, Geno Smith-like rebound career year?
Well, I mean, listen, Geno Smith and Sam Darnold, you know, even though they weren't great quarterbacks, they had more of a resume than Mason Rudolph did at this point. You know, Sam Darnold struggled with the Jets. Yeah, he had a lot of pieces around him in Minnesota. I don't know that the Steelers are quite set up that way. So I don't think the Steelers would be a terrible football team with Mason Rudolph, but I don't think the ceiling would be very high either. I think they would be an 8 or a 9 win team, maybe on the fringe of the playoffs, but probably nothing more than that.
Where's DK Metcalf, and is it a big deal he's not there?
Not sure. One of the players yesterday, Patrick Queen, made mention of some of these guys have personal issues going on that they have to deal with. I don't know what DK's issue is right now. I don't think it's a big deal. You know, Dorin spent time in the league. These are voluntary workouts, and they're especially voluntary for stars like DK Metcalf and TJ Watt, guys who really don't have anything to prove. So it'll be more of a story if any of these guys aren't here for the mandatory minicamp, but I don't think it's a big deal at all that some of these guys weren't here on the first day of OTAs.
Ray, Mason Rudolph has a lot to prove. I'll just ask you the question if he is possibly capable of having that rebound year like the other quarterbacks in the league. Broderick Jones is another guy who has a lot to prove moving to left tackle. Faltanu has a lot to prove in his basically rookie year this year of playing right tackle. But Roman Wilson, I think out of all of them, has the most to prove and the most probably on his shoulders. Do you think he's capable of handling being wide receiver number 2 as it sits right now?
We're going to find out. He's going to get plenty of opportunities this spring and in training camp, I think, to prove that he's a guy who could have a role in this football team. They invested a 3rd-round pick in him. His rookie season was pretty much a wash. He played 5 snaps in that game against the Raiders, and that was it. They pretty much redshirted him after that, after he had another injury, and they just put him on the shelf for the rest of the season. So there's opportunities for guys like Roman Wilson. There's opportunities for guys like Calvin Austin. I think Calvin Austin is another guy that I think they can lean on a little bit more. He had career highs in both yardage and touchdowns last season. He had more touchdowns, guys, than George Pickens last season. So I think between those two guys, they have to manufacture some semblance of a number 2 receiver. One of those guys might not ever get that title, but they got to piece together the production between those guys to be, you know, okay at number 2 and number 3.
Ray Fittipaldo joining us in the Fan Hotline, presented by Sullivan Super Service, Pittsburgh trusted plumbing and HVAC provider for over 50 years. Ray, if Roman Wilson plays well during OTAs, minicamp, does that mean they will not acquire a wide receiver 2, or does it not matter and they're always going to try to get a number 2 wide receiver?
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much you can prove in football and shorts. I think, you know, the real evaluation goes on in training camp when the pads come on, and then especially in the 3 preseason games. So he could look great out here. I don't think, if it's in their mind to bolster their roster and to add depth and or to maybe get a guy to compete for that number 2 spot, they won't be greatly influenced by whether he has a bad spring or a good spring, especially if Aaron Rodgers wants one of his own guys, to come in here or maybe be, somewhat of a security blanket for him. So, I think it would be great if Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin did really well over the next couple of weeks, but I don't think that'll be a big factor in any other roster decisions they do, between the end of minicamp and the start of training camp.
Ray, from now until, let's say, game number 4, who has to put it together the most on the TV, on paper, and for us to say, yeah, that guy has made a huge jump? Joey Porter Jr. or Keanu Benton for this team to be successful? This defense, let's say, to be successful.
Yeah, for this defense, I'm going to say Keanu Benton just because there's a lot of question marks still on that defensive line. I love that they doubled down on D linemen, and I hope those rookies can be contributors as rookies, but sometimes it's not smart to count on rookies. So Keanu Benton enters, this training camp, is your second best defensive lineman, and I think he has to start playing that way. I think I'm not blaming him, but I'm just saying overall that defensive line was a big disappointment towards the end of the season and especially in the playoffs. That's why they went out and got Y.A. Black. That's why they went out and got Derek Harmon. So apparently he's still going to play the nose, and if he's going to play the nose, he and everyone else on that defensive line have to play better against the run.
Ray Fittipaldo with us here on the Fan Hotline. What's the timeline for T.J. Watt, do you think? It just all ends with him getting 1 cent more than Myles Garrett somewhere around training camp and everybody's happy?
Yeah, I think it's going to be in the guaranteed money, and I wouldn't expect TJ to show up, honestly, for any of these OTAs. I don't think he's going to play hardball and stay away from minicamp. I think he'll probably be there, for that. I can't tell you when it's going to happen. Maybe it could happen in June, but I think it's more likely to happen in July or August. The interesting thing is, do they want to wait on the Cowboys to get a deal done with Micah Parsons, or do they want to be first in line, even if they have to overpay? And I think we all agree, Max Crosby signs for like $35.5 million. Then the Browns go to 40. So everyone, the Cowboys, the Lions, the Steelers, all think they're going to have to overpay for their guys. But when you look at it, it's almost better to be second than third or fourth, because whoever's third or fourth is going to end up paying more anyway.
Caleb Johnson, does he look the part?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that guy has the physique of an NFL football player. Looks really good out there, too. Looks confident. I know it's only OTAs, but, I think Jaylen Warren's going to be RB1 early in the season, but Jaylen Warren's also your best pass protector and your best receiver out of the backfield. And I think Caleb Johnson's skill set is to be a first and second down back. So I could very easily see a scenario, Dorin, where, by October, he's actually a starter, playing first and second downs. And, I don't think the touches or the carries are going to vary a lot. I think it'll be close to a 50-50 split. But I do think, maybe by October or at the latest, the middle of the season, I think Caleb Johnson could be RB1 and play on first and second downs.
Who else is passing the eye test through 1 day of football in shorts?
Oh, I mean, Harmon is just he's that big prototypical defensive end in the Steelers mode. He looks the part. Y.A. Black, too. That guy's a big body. They can play anywhere on that defensive line. So we're not going to find out about those guys until training camp, but I'm really looking forward to Latrobe and, seeing those guys on one-on-ones against Zach Frazier and Mason McCormick. And, it's almost like phase one of the rebuild was the O-line. Those guys established themselves a little bit last year. Phase two is the D-line, and we're going to get to see how far these guys are along when they go up against each other in training camp a couple of weeks from now.
Ray, June 10th, mini camp, mandatory. Yeah. Is Aaron Rodgers throwing the football in the black and gold on June 10th?
No, it's not mandatory if he's not signed, so I think you have to keep that in mind. I think, I think it'll get done by then. I wish I had a better handle what his personal issues were and, where the timeline was with that. I suppose, if he's not here, guys, that they could still wait until training camp. But I think just being around that team yesterday, asking those questions, and, you're only able to, get across so much when you write a story or when you talk about it. But it just seems like I said at the top, guys are tired of this, and they just want some clarity. Is it going to be Mason Rudolph or is it going to be Aaron Rodgers? Let's get on with this so we can, go about our offseason.
Ray, did you ever have a mustache?
I had a goatee like when I was in high school and college, but don't know that I ever had a Mason Rudolph stash. That's impressive, guys.
When you're talking goatee, are we talking just on the chin, or you had the mustache that folded down into the chin? Yeah.
No, I never had like the Lou Albano rubber band. I just had I just had the goatee that I trimmed a little bit.
Very good. Ray, thank you for your time as always. Have fun down there today.
All right, guys. See ya.
Thanks, Ray.
See you, buddy.